about 50-something special advisors. So how do we get to understand? At what point, I think that's the question, at what point do we realize that, look, there is need to reduce the costs of governance? Because that same thing applies to even the president and members of the National Assembly. Well, we've got someone who, I don't know how to call, he's a politician. But of course, he's more in tune with his policy development side of things. So he's a policy development strategist. Please make welcome Dr. Jeff Adebowale Johnson. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you intend to contest and win election in the nearest future. So I guess let me start from there. Let me go to your political side. Do you intend to have as many special advisors, senior special assistants to help you? Because that's the whole intention, to help you navigate the responsibilities given to you. Don't worry, they will be there free of charge. But I want to believe, Jibola, let me just ask this question in peace. So, do you also intend to have as many as possible?
No, I wouldn't.
Why? They are not doing anything bad, according to what Jibola said. I also is in the Constitution to help you take on your responsibilities. That's what the Constitution says.
Yes. So it's constitutional, yes. You know, just like you stated. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but what I believe also is that whether the funding can be made available by the state or, you know, any office that you occupy, do you need to have so many? The answer is no. The way we can also do this is very, very simple. My own view is that you can have those people on an advisory level, on a consultancy basis.
Part-time?
Part-time. They don't have to be full-time. They don't have to be on a regular payroll. If I'm correct, and you know, I don't know all things, but I believe that in the US there are people that are called lobbyists.
Yeah.
They're not on government payroll. So do you need assistance? Do you need people? Yes, have approved lobbyists. People who are approved and can come into the State House or come into your office, whatever ministry or the villa. But on the basis of they go out there, look for things, look for projects, look for answers to questions, and then they bring it forward and come to have a conversation. So it is based on what they bring that they will earn. And there's nothing wrong, absolutely, in putting that there and say, okay, so as many solutions as you go out there to look for. So if I want to solve problem in education, and you said something, you know, interesting earlier before I came in. I have been in a northern state since March trying to, you know, solve a critical problem in education and trying to help with infrastructure deficit. And like you guys have said, there are millions of our the future of Nigeria that are out of school. In fact, this state, I don't want to mention because of the statistics, is really bad. There are 400 schools as of mid-year this year, before the governor engaged, you know, some teachers. 400 schools with 400 teachers.
Eh?
Yes. And that statistics was not fabricated. 400 schools, not one school or two schools or three. 400 with 400 teachers, which means one teacher per school.
Okay.
And teachers and students sit on the floor, sit under the trees. I mean, teachers also, not just students. So we're trying to solve this problem. And we're working with the state to ensure. I'm back there this evening. We're trying to ensure that we solve that problem. Now, for me, I'm not an essay to the governor.
Okay.
But I can bring a solution to the governor. And even the person who brought me to the governor is not an essay to the governor, but is known even in the State House. So you need more people like that who are not generally on payroll, but they are out there looking for solutions to problems.
Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. Are you sounding this way because you have not been elected yet? Because whether you like it or not, during your election,
yes,
some people will work with you,
absolutely,
work for you, and ensure that, okay, you are victorious at the end of the day.
Yes.
I have had politicians say that, okay, special advisors, special assistants, they are job for the boys, for working for them. So whether they pay them at the expense, at the detriment of the people or not, they don't care. I have some figures here.
Yes.
In May last year, Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo appointed 43 SAs and 131 senior special assistant, totaling 170. That's Kogi. Yobe State House of Assembly approved no fewer than 24 SAs for the state governor. And on June 6, 2023, Adamawa State Governor approved the appointment of 50 SAs. And these are some of the states, like you rightly told us now, there are no schools, there are no basic infrastructure. Are these people actually there to serve at all?
If that is the direct question you're asking me, it will be difficult for me to give you a direct answer, but I'll just say what we can do is to actually see the impact of this appointment in the last few months. And let's be very realistic. What IGR as this group of people generated for the state? Where is the state today? Okay, so let's pick Lagos, for example. I'm not sure Lagos has as many SAs, attached to the governor, His Excellency. But even if the numbers are there, the question is, what is the impact of these people on, the bottom line? What are we seeing? How far? If you say somebody is an SA on youth development, for example, the question is, what program have such a person brought to the state? And what is the impact on the youth of the state? What has been done? So if you tell me, Kogi, sadly enough, because I won't say it's interesting, before the election, I knew the governor was going to win the election. How did I know? I had conversations because I had sent in a proposal similar to what we do, because my firm does project financing, and we focus on the public sector, trying to help state government generate IGR. And I would say this, that during Governor Fashola, we wrote a paper to the governor on IGR generation, and it kind of like helped with the Bile Holdings. We didn't execute. The governor, I'm sure, at a program, he mentioned that, the proposal was too expensive and stuff like that. But we saw the implementation of some of the ideas. In Kano, during Governor Nasiru El-Rufai, the person that I gave, Kaduna, the person that I gave the proposal to, took it there and took on the mandate to execute my proposal, and he failed. Now, the reality is that when you talk about, is it because I've not been elected? Maybe in 2027, I'll be elected as governor of Lagos State. Then it'll be easier for me to come here and answer the question, would I need as many essays? The answer is I don't need as many.
You might need also.
No, I will need you.
Good.
Yeah, I will need you. I'll need everyone, including those behind the cameras. But the understanding is that, do I need to put as many people on payroll? The answer is no. Like I said, you can have people who are lobbyists, they are approved lobbyists. So you may not necessarily call them that. You can call them SA. But they don't have to be on payroll every month. You're churning out money because, it's not just only about their salary, but of course you have to pay for their logistics and every other thing that's associated to their office. So if we have a set of people like that who are like, for example, myself, who can go out there and go and look for answers to questions, and go and, generate data and come up with solutions to those problems, we will reduce, the cost of engaging. Because for me, if I'm able to bring this solution to you, and I know that there's a percentage is approved for me to earn of that project, then I'll rather stay there. So I will be a problem solver and take my commission. And this is approved, in the US, I believe that's how the system runs. So I don't think we shouldn't do similar stuff rather than what we currently have.
If I go through the data churned out by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, it's very astronomical, the debt we've incurred. Some states are topping the chart here. We've got Cross River with the highest foreign debt increase, followed by Kano, then Niger State. And I'm sure if we look at, that's for foreign debt portfolio. What about internally, internal debts? You'll be scared as to what we have. Some people have argued that we should have instead of the bicameral legislature, let's have one. And it's also perhaps in line with what you're talking about. Let's have them on consultancy basis. That kite hasn't flown since it was suggested. I don't see anyone that will enjoy the enormous largesse of being a senator or the honorable member of the House of Representatives that will forget the allowances and the need to buy foreign SUVs and just say let's forgo that for the benefit of Nigeria. No, they're enjoying all those things for Nigeria.
Yes.
When will we realize? I know the president is also trying, in a way, after the Dubai debacle of the COP, what's it now? Now COP29 will be reducing our debt by about 10 billion naira. That's what we want to reduce the cost of flying people to go talk about climate change. At what point will we get the message that, look, this money, when we hear about it, 20 billion naira for Vice President House, 100 billion naira for presidential jet, we'll realize that, what about Nigerians? When would they have 1 million naira?
The answer to the question is that we need to have a reset in Nigeria.
Who will reset it now?
That's,
Political reset, mental reset.
in fact, an entire reset, both political, mental, because again, on the political side, yes. On the citizen side, we also need a lot of reset, our mindset. A lot of national reorientation, or a national reorientation needs to kick off that brings us to that point of changing things. I'll mention my brother's name, and he's trying to do something in the villa in another couple of weeks, I believe. Dayo Israel. And if Dayo is watching, I think it's high time for us to really talk about what we've talked about on this platform, at least maybe once or twice. What is the Nigerian dream? Until we have something that talks about who we are as a people and where we are headed. And not just only Dayo Israel, Deji Adeyanju, and everyone who has clamored for not to
Jump to
run and all those conversations. We all need to forget about party lines and forget about godfatherism and forget about what is in it for me conversation and really come back to this table. We talked about education and the education policy around age. And just as I was getting here, my driver was asking me, what's my take? Because we're listening to a radio show. And he said his daughter is 15 and should be going into the university. And I said, only if it's a private university, because that girl is too young to go. So I said, it's all about maturity, not just about the number of the age. And so there's a lot that we need to do back end, to do a lot of reforms. And so we need to have that, reset button press. Somebody once said, I was on a radio show, and somebody said, oh, if you two become a rep or a senator, aren't you going to? I said, I'm not going to refuse. I can't be one person in the midst of 100+ people. And I'm saying I'm refusing allowance. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around the execution, the usage of that money away from self
To your constraints.
yes, to more empowerment. And what more can I do? I'm from Imota in Lagos State. I was just trying to, tell you, that's my origin, right? And there are lots of young people within that community that I know requires education and not academics. Education, I said it since 2005, education in Nigeria is dead. Academics that we have is crippled. So what we have now is that education is long dead. Academics that we used to have that was disabled is now even entering coma. Literally to the point where you will see graduates of College of Education who cannot speak good English, let alone teach even what they need to pass on to those children. And I know that's one of the things you were saying earlier. So there's a lot that we need to do. And so if you're going to go to the legislative arm to say we need to change things, the same people are the ones who are going to have to pass the bill.
Okay.
So we need some radical mindset within that structure to actually help us change the Constitution and change some of the things that will help us change our governance, the structure of our governance, because that's the only way we can also reduce the cost of governance.
Okay. Joshua mentioned the purchase of SUVs the other time. Instead of going abroad to purchase some of these SUVs, why can't we source for them locally? That is one. There was an allegation against the Zamfara state government about 19.3 billion naira was budgeted, was allocated for kitchen utensils.
You're allowed to go there again.
You know, the State Ministry of Education actually gave us a breakdown saying that the name canteen and kitchen is a fixed asset purchase and the coded name of a particular category of multiple expenditure which contain a provision of the Agile program, construction of zonal primary schools, provision of smart primary schools, and procurement of kitchen utensils for all government schools for 40 billion naira. The commissioner just tried to justify why the sum of 19.3 billion naira was allocated for kitchen utensils, allegedly now. For a state that can barely pay minimum wage, for a state without good schools, without good hospitals, here you are allocating the sum of 19.3 billion naira for kitchen what?
Utensils
what quality of people do we even elect as our leaders? Then as an electorate, do we question their integrity, their mindset, before we allow them to govern us?
So that's why I said earlier that we need a reset. So the understanding that I have
for kitchen, 19.3 billion.
You said, you know, your last statement is around how we get people into office. And so that's why I said again, we need a reset. Because we, the citizens, the ones who have the power, we have the power, but we don't know it. We have the power, we're not educated about it. And this is a systematic way of, you know, not getting us to know our power and use our power the right way. So what you have is you have a group of people, a nation, a state, a local government. You have a group of people who are clueless about their right. And I'm sorry to say, I'm a citizen as well, but I'm also not sorry to say, because this is a result, a direct result of how we allow few thousands of naira on the day of election to judge our decision and to, you know, put us in a sort of a bondage. And we say, hey, however, let's just leave them. At the end of the day, we see things like this happen. And it is with impunity that the public sector has been so messed up. And I'll give a typical example. I think it was here. It was the morning show. What was the title of the morning show we had before? The Morning Delight. Yeah. And, you know, I was seated on the couch over there. I said that the president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, needed to do three things. Number one was a public reform. Interestingly, after many months after that, I think must have been early this year, I was in an honorable's rep member's office, and somebody came to him and said, well, you know, we're from the audit department. I'm from the audit department. You know, we've given you some money and we need you to retire. But you know, the way it can be done is you can just, you know, give us, I think it was asking that they have a structure, 10%, and, you know, they would fix everything. So within the House, the audit department, within the House, somebody came to meet the honorable member, and I was there, saying, if we have given you money, you don't need to provide receipt for everything. Just give us 10% of that money, and we will fix all the paperwork. The public sector requires a lot of reforms. The private sector, absolutely. The citizenship, we the citizens, we must press a reset button. If not, there's nothing we can do about all of these things we see in the budget. It will continue to happen. We know the allegation against the Senate President around all of the things that were embedded in the budget. Has anything been done about it? The answer is no.
We're still waiting.
We're still waiting.
Okay. I know before you came here, talking about the cost of governance, I'm sure you have some figures, like you've crunched or munched your head as to how did we get here? Because I've looked at some of the states, because hardly will you find any state, including Lagos State, that want to execute any project due to the fact that it's been allocated. They will need to source for other funds, either locally or so everyone within the past 1 year, just say for perhaps the new governors, they would have gone somewhere, because they can't be telling people in the first year of governance that, look, sorry, anything for you people, sorry, because we are trying to be prudent, and that's why we are not borrowing. But no, some of them will go out and source for loan, of course, backed by federal government guarantees.
Yes.
Which numbers of all these things you've seen that is quite disturbing for you, or like you were perturbed that this is happening at this time when we're talking about high cost of living, high time inflation?
Okay, so thank you. Just last year, of course, after the election, you know, I'm a politician and I ran for office. I sat back and I said, how do we, and I called my team, I said, how do we help this government? It doesn't matter party. I don't care about which political party. And, you know, in our public sector advisory practice, we have what we call project financing. And we looked at it and we said, okay, so many states and federal government may not be able to take loans because of the exposure. But what can we do differently? And so we started talking to funders, especially outside the country, who are interested in bringing funding into Nigeria. So we changed the strategy a bit. And what we decided to do was, instead of giving government money, and those who are saddled with the responsibility of the implementation of that particular project or whatever project the funding is meant for, most of them, okay, so I saw a road yesterday at Imota. I was home yesterday and I saw a road, cobblestone, of about maybe a few meters. You can, if you jog the length of that road, maybe 1,000 times before you get tired. I mean, a road that a councillor had collected money to do, and he didn't, he didn't do the job. And that's what we have seen.
We need to call them out. It's not, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so those are the things we've seen over the years. We see a lot of borrowing, but we don't see the impact. So what we then decided to do as an organization was to then say, we will execute the project. So instead of us giving you money, so my funders, and I've quite a bit of them, had made allocation for up to $5 billion. Actually, for the federal government, we wrote to the minister, but of course that requires a sovereign guarantee, and federal government was not going to issue a sovereign guarantee, so we left that. But at the state level, we said, okay, we could do a state guarantee. So there's the state ISPO and there's the federal ISPO. If we got the federal ISPO backed, you know, by the project that the state wants to give us, then it will be cheaper in cost to the state. But the good thing for us is that we are executing. So it's not that we're giving the state, and we currently have about $500 million already for engagement. And like I said, I've been in a state in the north since March, and we're wrapping up the paperwork. I told them we needed to do a proper due diligence. If I'm going to be fixing 500 schools in the state, we need to do proper bill of quantity and know the exact cost for each of those schools. So it has taken us a long, time. My company has invested over 20 million in all of this preliminary work. We're not asking the state for any kobo ahead. We need to get to the point where you issue us the project. We're fixing all the schools, equipping them, making them modern, but then you back it up with a guarantee that you're going to pay over the space of 3 years. We would come, execute, and when we execute the project, then you start paying us. So that way, the dividends of that borrowing, you will see it clearly, rather than we come and then the state says we need 500, we need maybe 100 billion naira, and they will come borrow you 100 billion, and nothing is done.
AFRY has gone to
So that's our own strategy to ensure. The things that we have seen is that many borrowings have happened, and the dividends of that money is not there because people have pocketed most of that, money. But we are coming to execute because we're not taking money from you. We don't have a choice. We have to execute so that our money can come back. And so this is the structure that we have put in place to help state government as much as help the federal government, because we're talking to some ministers as well. We wrote a paper on the renewed hope, not the agenda, the renewed hope housing. Okay. Before it became a thing, sent to the minister. Also, I think we tried sending it to the villa as well. But whatever is existing right now, we're trying to play a part in it. Our structure was to build 100,000 housing units across the country, and we already have a structure backed by technology. Affordable? Affordable. Because we have a technology, we're bringing a prefab, make it a lot easier. We're going to create over, based on my numbers, in each state we'll create about 10,000 jobs.
Wow, that's good.
So imagine that spread across the country. 6 states. And then it's going to be easy. I see a lot of young guys behind the camera, right? And I see, quite a few number of them. And LTV is a, fantastic home. And I call on parents who have, children who want to go into media to come to LTV, Lagos Television, to come and learn. I see a lot of impact that, the management here give to those young people. These are young people, the future, that we all look forward to and we all say, can actually own a home now, even while they are still in the university, with our structure, because it's backed by technology. As they pay on a daily basis, monthly basis, whatever structure they have, the home that they would have access to after they've saved money to a certain level can then be delivered to them, and they can put it in the market for rentals, and the rent of that particular property will be used to pay back. So by the time they are graduating, maybe a year or two after they've gotten themselves into active work, they can pay the balance. If it's a place they can live there and be paying like they're paying rent to own. Okay. And so these are some of the structures that would help us see dividends of democracy.
Dr. Jeff, if we engage here. Even when you lament or you complain, some of these politicians, they don't care.
Yes.
I have the power. I'm going to be in the office for 4 years. So if you like, continue to cry. If you like, continue to shout. Now, my question now is this. Whether we like it or not, another election will come in 2027.
Yes.
You said we should reboot, or how did you coin it?
Restart.
Restart. What kind of engagement do you think we should be having as we look forward to another election in such a way that these political class, your group, will stop taking us for granted?
Yes. So what kind of engagement?
Yes.
And I would say that I think maybe it was you were talking one time like that. I came around that we need to start a conversation. We need to start having conversations that are not live TV like this, because it gives us limited time. We need to, of course, take it off the social media, but start it from there, galvanize people. And I was on TV once and I told Deji Adeyanju that, during the NSAS, I had End Bad Governance as my own hashtag. And I was calling for that it was not just only NSAS, but End Bad Governance. So when this started, I quickly removed that from my Twitter page, like, hey, I don't want to be seen as one of the people behind, because if you're not structured, if you don't have a proper conversation and proper engagement, what happened was going to happen. So we need to be able to galvanize ourselves together and start having intelligent conversations as citizens of this country. Somebody needs to lead the conversation, and we need to have more. Of course, that's why I call on the national parties to have engagement, of course, at the youth wings, to have national engagement, but break it down to state, break it to region, to state, and then to local government. We need to bring ourselves together, young people, citizens, and have intelligent conversations around what is going on. And it's not about name calling. It's not about saying, oh, my rep is not doing enough, my councillor is not. No. It's about what do we need within this our close niche. Have a conversation around what are the solutions that we can design and what are the paths that we need to follow. Then cascade that up to the local government, from the wards to the local government, you know, and translate that all the way to the first. So that when we have one holistic document that speaks through everything that needs to be done, it becomes a blueprint for engagement. So that
become campaigning.
Yes, that's the essence. God gave me the opportunity to review President Obasanjo's blueprint, the needs document in 2005. My focus was on education. That's when I said that I sat back and I said, education in Nigeria is dead. I made some recommendations. Dr. Obi implemented some of those recommendations. Lagos State has implemented, you know, the recommendation, which is to return the mission schools back to the missionaries and let government continue to do that supervisory role and let those missions, Maryland, for example, Maryland Comprehensive, I went to Maryland Primary School, is run by the Catholic. So they handle their operations. But government still has the supervisory. Some people feel it's not a good idea and all of that. Education should be free, yes, if we can afford it. Because education is not free. Somebody must pay for the knowledge. So we must have intelligent conversations about each of our sectors and professionals. And I've said this once before, that we consultant, I'm a consultant as well, as much as I'm a politician, you know, we actually even created some of the problems that we see today. In the private sector, if an organization wants to evade tax, they get the compensation expert to come and help structure the pay. So you put
but does
more
not
money.
only play out in Nigeria, it plays out in the US as well.
Yeah, so we've learned all of that. So we do that. We put most of the money in allowances and all the non-taxable element. And this is what is playing out in the Senate. So these guys in the Senate, the politicians, they sit down to give themselves a title or give an element of their pay structure, inconvenience allowance. Somebody thought about it. Somebody was given the task to sit down and coin out how to name all those hardship allowance and all those allowances. The challenge is that we've created that structure now. And from every Senate, there will be increment as you increase minimum wage.
Increase the entitlements.
That will also happen.
Okay, so there seems not to be an end in sight for cost of governance. We don't intend to shrink government like I've heard since when I was in journalism school. There's no body language from anywhere that the president is going to reduce the number of ministers. In fact, we increased it. Sometimes, so is there a way we can marry high cost of governance with we're trying to be more productive or effective? Does it tally?
So yeah, I initially thought that our president, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, would not have these many ministerial appointments. And I want to believe there's a strategy behind it. Let us hope that that strategy will work.
That's Jibola's favorite word.
Let us hope.
Hope,
because this is, we need hope. Let us hope it will work. But if I'm to call on him and, you know, say, sir, our daddy, as we call him, we need to reduce the ministries significantly. What I would have thought that we would have done with this government, with reforms, was to shrink. And the...
Or not so resource, but they've implemented some of it.
Now.
Yes, some have been implemented, but we need to implement a major part of that report. As much as we also need to be very strategic with even doing some other things that are not in that report. If we shrink for now, narrow down our cost, recurrent cost, fueling of cars and buying of vehicles, office and office renovations and so many of those things. Our recurrent expenditure is more than our capital expenditure. And yet our budget is still at a deficit of close to 10 trillion naira. So if we reduce all those and pump in more money into developing more infrastructure and bridging that gap and increase our IGR significantly, then we can now start to open up and then empower more ministries, because now we can afford to carry the weight. No business, and as a private sector, and I always like to encourage my clients that you want to expand your business, you want to grow. And so when you're doing strategy, it's not about opening more branches that will help you grow. Do your market research. And if you give that to us to do, we will be unbiased because we're not you. If there is a 20% gap in the market, does not mean you must plug it. Do you understand that? There's a 20% gap in the market. This cup, demand versus supply, there's still a 20%. Does not mean you must produce.
So what should you do?
So what should you do? Thank you. The strategic positioning for you is to find out in the value chain of producing this cup, what is lacking to create that gap. Go and plug that side first. Let's talk about food inflation. It's not about going, so there's a problem with the farming, the production of the farm because of insecurity
as well.
But you see, there's also problem between the produce, what is on the farm, and the table. And it's not just only about logistics. Warehousing, processing, so many others. So what you then need to do is look at your operations. Don't overburden your operations by bringing in many more things that you don't have capacity to handle. It's to say, okay, I'm in this value chain. Let me pick a part that can ease out some percentage of this 20% gap. Focus there and then grow from there until you are able to then carry the volume. So for us as a nation, we didn't take a look at some of those things that are very strategic and very clear for us to plug first. We made the ministry too big and too bogus to the point that I am yet to see what is happening with Blue Ocean. I'm not saying they're not doing anything. It's called Blue Ocean, right? Or the Blue
Economy.
Blue Economy.
Blue Economy.
We have a ministry for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing anything happening there. I'm not saying they're not working. But what is the significant impact 1 year plus down the line?
Jeff, a very quick one before we let you go. Do you think it will make our political positions less attractive, less juicy? We are going to save some costs.
Absolutely.
And people will be less interested.
Absolutely. No, we don't need less interest. We don't need it to be less attractive. The attraction should not be about money, yes. It should not be about money. It should be about governance. It should be about real impact. So if we make it so that if you are in a seat and the citizens can revoke you, if after 6 months, 1 year, all the promises you came to come and make mouth, you can't even show capacity, they can revoke you immediately and bring somebody else there. When the citizens see their power and they're able to engage with that power, and INEC become truly independent, will allow people to exercise their power, not just only by voting, but that they can recall someone, then you will see that people who are really ready to work will be interested. And if they get there and excuses are no longer acceptable, the next person will come after. If I'm in office and I refuse to perform, and you kick me out, and if they vote for you, and you refuse to perform, by the time it's coming to you,
I'll sit up.
you will sit up.
Are we likely to have that at the local government level because of this autonomy?
Now, if we're talking about local government autonomy, I think that also in itself has octopussy kind of leg, where you can't really determine what's going to happen. So let's assume that Lagos State government or Lagos State decides to run a local government election. And if all the elected officers are from the same party, let's assume they're all from the same party with the governor, how do you think that they will truly independently function as a local government?
That's another
or your
conversation.
state, for example,
Yeah.
just did its own abacadabra.
With the chairman, they are no longer part of Algon.
So that's what is good. That's what you will likely see. So I'm not saying here that yes, it's going to happen that way. I'm just saying that this is what we have seen played out, and anything can happen.
Okay, I have thought I was going to get some kind of an epiphany with having a conversation with you this morning, but it's I'm not too excited at the end of the day. Maybe because we have not reduced the cost so far. Okay, that's about it for our conversation on reducing cost of governance in Nigeria. Of course, Dr. Jeff Adebowale Johnson has been our guest this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
He's a policy development strategist and a politician. Well, perhaps we have less money to talk about on the Lagos conversation, so let's allow them go. After this break, Lagos conversation will be on the menu for you. Don't go anywhere.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.